Tonight's story brings us to Japan, the home of adorable electric mice and the car that you own that your grandparents are still upset about. This April, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe came to the US and addressed a joint session of Congress, which is pretty historic. It's worth mentioning some interesting things he included about his country's past.
A warm welcome for Shinzo Abe, the first Japanese Prime Minister to address a joint meeting of the US Congress.
On behalf of Japan and the Japanese people, I offer, with profound respect, my eternal condolences to the souls of all American people that were lost during World War II.
It's always nice to know nations can stroke America's ego about World War II like reminding your hometown 30-something varsity quarterback about his heyday senior year. You go, Chad. So, the Prime Minister apologized to America for its actions during World War II and the Americans who died in it. However, he made only a passing remark about the actions in Asia. This was not an accident. Japan's officials have made keen efforts in recent years to avoid apologizing for Japan's war atrocities on continental Asia. Abe is not the first.
일본 노다 총리의 터무니없는 공세가 이어지고 있습니다. 이번에는 종군 위안부를 강제로 동원한 증거가 없다고 주장했습니다.
종군 위안부와 관련된 노다 총리의 오늘 국회 발언은 구구파의 주장과 다르지 않았습니다.
強制連行したという事実を文書では確認できないし、日本側の証言はありません。
국가공안위원장은 한술 더 떠 이번 기회에 고노 담화 자체를 수정하자고 제안했습니다.
強制連行を直接示すような記述も見当たらなかったところである。閣僚間で議論すべきということ。
Now, it's easy to write off World War II as ancient history, but these statements are not trivial. East Asia, particularly China and South Korea, have argued for Japan to apologize for their wartime crimes for decades. Korea has called for an apology for Japan's use of comfort women forcibly taken to serve in military brothels, and China has called for actions apologizing for the rape of Nanking and similar war crimes. Here's the thing, Japan doesn't even give that. In fact, they use it as a platform for political campaigns, and it works.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says there are no plans to revise the landmark apology Tokyo issued in 1993 to the so-called comfort women.
The Japanese government had declared earlier this month that it would probe the accuracy of testimonies provided by Korean comfort women, which established the basis of the statement. The move had raised speculations Japan was attempting to backtrack on its apology.
It's not that hard, Japan. You've even tried a bunch of times. In fact, your 1995 apology by the House of Representatives to commemorate the 50th anniversary of World War II remains the most comprehensive and forward apology to date. But since then, there hasn't been much progress, especially when it comes to comfort women from Korea, with some politicians outright denying their existence.
Despite the annual memorials, Japan is seeing a wave of provocative moves to the right concerning atrocities that it committed during the Second World War. The newly appointed chairman of the Japanese broadcaster NHK, Katsuto Momi, said all countries at war employ comfort women and is only considered wrong based on today's standards. Meanwhile, another governor on the NHK board, Naoki Nyakuta, said earlier this month that the 1937 Nanjing massacre in China simply never happened.
It illustrates just how well Japan has been responding to rising nationalism. Since Japan has begun to stagnate economically in the early 90s, Japan's government has been increasing its defense spending and, in some cases, whitewashing Japanese history. It's done this through selection of public school textbooks, outspoken politicians, and private organizations or political parties. Some of these groups, known as Uwec or far-right-wing parties, have become infamous in Japan. These groups have often been seen in dark vans with megaphones in public areas, starting rhetoric or propaganda, and have been iconic to these organizations. Don't worry, we all know runaway nationalism has never led to anything bad. You would think that America, the country that made Japan sign over its ability to declare war and crush their ultra-nationalism, would care about an indication that Japan might be reverting its political ideology. But most legislators don't, because they found something we need even more out of Japan.
70 years after the end of World War II, the leaders of nations that were once bitter enemies stood together as close allies and pledged to uphold each other's security through updated defense cooperation guidelines, allowing Japan to move away from its pacifist constitution. President Obama said Tuesday this strong alliance is good for the world and should not be seen as a provocation to China. He said the U.S. has always welcomed China's peaceful rise, but acknowledged real tensions over Beijing's claims in the South China Sea.
Exactly. America wants a reliable ally in East Asia, and that outweighs everything else. Japan's reluctance to admit and atone for their war crimes 70 years ago has become a major factor in international politics between three of the world's most powerful economies. If the future holds that Japan takes a larger role on the world stage, they should at least come to terms with their history, because the last thing we need is something that looks like this in today's world.